Now this is a video that all of you have been looking for in this 6BQ5 EL84 amplifier series, and that is how to match speakers with them. And I will go through the entire range from the lowest power DEC version through the highest power Quicksilver integrated, and tell you what kind of speakers they will be really happy with. And if you have, for example, low sensitivity bookshelf speakers and you want to hook them up to each of them, what are you going to get? And also we'll show you, if you have high sensitivity, high efficiency speakers, what's the difference, how things change. So here, as an overview, just to overview the whole scenario, Quicksilver integrated will be happy playing with electrostatic speakers. So if you have quads, magnepans, they will play tunes with them. It will be a perfect match. So that also answers one of my questions I received, that how to match electrostatic speakers with tube amps. It's really hard. Basically, for the recipe, you need a push-pull design amplifier that can deliver loads of currents. And how can we tell if it can deliver loads of currents? When we can tell that when I get into the Quicksilver section of this video series. So for right now, let's just satisfy ourselves that with the knowledge that you need higher current drive capability amplifier, and the Quicksilver can do that. And to a certain degree, the Dynaco Stereo 35 can do it as well, and the Lance Cochrane as well. Plus, the Audio Note kit EL84 is going to get you there as well. The auto would not, because the Audio Note kit, I did not put it here, but that's a push-pull design, and the auto is not, it's single-ended, so you will have a very refined sound, but not very loud, probably, but louder than you would expect, because the auto has a lot of power supply reserves, so it can deal out much more to the electrostats than you would suspect. However, it's a single-ended no feedback design, so it's not going to give you earth destroying bass with electrostatics. So going lower in power, basically a Dynaco Stereo 35 will drive anything but current hungry speakers to absolutely fantastic performance levels. I have heard them driving low sensitivity bookshelf speakers, and that was my first experience with them, and it's just absolutely a jaw-dropping experience. How powerful it sounds, and how refined it is, and it keeps its refinement even with bookshelf speakers. So if you have bookshelf speakers at home, so you do not have a big listening area and do not have space for big speakers, but you want a high level of refined tube sound with a lot of bass, and maybe you don't even want to use subwoofers with your in your system, then driving low efficiency speakers with a Stereo 35 will give you a phenomenal experience. And the next thing you will want to upgrade in your system will be anything but the amplifier, and that's my that's what I can share about the 35 at this time. And then we will go deeper in a separate episode dedicated to it on more details. The lens crane is also a similar output as the Dyna, and they are both push-pull EL84s. However, it has much smaller output transformer than the Dynaco. And when you look at the drive capability, you also need to look at the size of the output transformer, because yes, when you are talking about headroom, about bass handling, then size is everything. So when you play these two amplifiers with a very efficient loudspeaker, then it will not matter too much, because the bandwidth of an output transformer, when the power output is low, it stays wide. So it means that if you are not playing it hard, then you get very deep sound, very deep frequencies out of it. However, if you start playing it louder and louder, even though the vacuum tubes and the power supply can handle it, the output transformer will become more and more limiting. And that's why you need like really big size output transformer. Look at those, it's humongous. Same thing in the Quicksilver integrated, the output transformers are huge. They occupy most of the real estate in the chassis. And when you look at the this DIY amp and the deck version, they have tiny output transformers, so that makes them more suitable for very efficient loudspeakers. And in that case, they have really good low-end response. You will not miss anything. It plays super deep. But if you go for lower efficiency speakers, let's say like you drop down to 90 dB or less into the 80s, then unfortunately big iron is a must. So because of the output transformer size, so it's not just the power output, but the output transformer as well, plus the power supply, the deck version needs the highest efficiency speakers to play happily, so it plays at its best at 95 dB plus speakers. When you look for the Audionaut Auto, 92 dB plus. I do not have the ANC, the Audionaut kit, but it has a little bit more power than the Auto. However, it's in class AB mode, while the Auto is in class A mode, so essentially they would play they could drive the same loudspeaker to about the similar volumes. You would need a similar efficiency speaker with that. And with the lens crane, well, I say that you can go to 90 dB, but actually the Audionaut Auto has a much better power supply, much bigger output transformer. So eventually I would also put the lens crane, rather than what I show here, 90 dB, I would pull it with the Auto, and I would say 92 dB speakers at least, so do not read that number there. For the Stereo 35, you can put anything on it. You can mate it with 93 dB loudspeakers, bookshelves. It will give you fantastic results. I would say you can mate it with anything but electrostatics, or for example, if you like Wilson audio products that dip below 2 ohms impedance, then it will not give you that earth-shattering Titanic crashing to the iceberg type of effect, as if you might be looking for that, you will be disappointed. But if you are not looking for that, and even if you are using electrostats, this is a wonderful amplifier driving electrostatic speakers, but don't expect to rock Pink Floyd concerts or Spinal Tap or something the like, or play jazz at nightclub volume levels. But if you are into average level listening, even with electrostats, this Dynaco will give you fantastic results. With the Quicksilver, you can push the electrostats more and it will still stay in its comfort stage. So now let's look at the extreme, because all of these speakers, these amplifiers, part of them are really happy playing with practically everything, but some of them want higher efficiency. And now let's look at three parts of the spectrum. What happens when you have very high, I would say ultra high efficient speakers? What happens when you have efficient speakers? And what happens when you have low efficiency speakers? So what are the requirements from the amplifier at each of these different applications? So and I'm not just talking about what is the peak level you can get out of them. That is when you are playing a sine wave, and what is the peak volume where the sine wave is undistorted. That's a measurement, and it's perfect when you want to establish whether your amplifier and loudspeakers are working properly or they need repair and maintenance. But just using a sine wave and distortion to tell what's the peak level of audio experience, it doesn't compute. Audio signal is not a plain sine wave, and it's not a plain square wave. It is a very highly modulated signal. Basically, it's like thousands and thousands of signals interleaved upon each other at very, very different power levels. It's something extremely complex, and this also means that it requires a lot of headroom from the amplifier to handle it. And now let's have a look at it. How much exact headroom do we need? So if we have 100 dB ultra efficient loudspeakers, of course these guys that I list here, people might know more about Klipsch horns, the Klipsch products. They offer multiple loudspeakers above 100 dB. If you look at louder loudspeakers or loudspeakers using louder drivers, they are also in this range. If you look at Edgar horns, which are the late Bruce Edgar's creations, unfortunately he passed away, but while he was still alive, I would say without a shadow of the doubt, his loudspeakers were the very best loudspeakers that you could buy commercially. So if you are not a loudspeaker builder, you are not into DIY, build your own, but you wanted to hear the best with cost no object, and in this case you would not object to not spending ridiculous amounts of money, but rather just reasonable amount of money, then Edgar horns were the best sound in my experience. So they provided the deepest, most musical, most refined sound that I ever heard from any commercial loudspeakers, and include any fancy brands Wilson Audio in that list. And also when you have Altec loudspeakers that use Altec drivers like the Voice of the Theaters or the big JBL speakers, they are also capable of that. But as some of my commenters noticed, for the Altec speakers, it's not such an easy thing to find a good specimen. And I would say that if you just find a Voice of the Theater loudspeaker that someone pulled from the movie theater and it's not modified properly, it's going to show just an embryonic sound. It will be very far from what those loudspeakers can do. And in one of the next future episodes, I'm going to tell you a story. It will be storytelling time. of what how I and my friends experience the Altec sound. What is that absolutely uh, radical transformation that these loudspeakers can go through if we just use them in how they were in a dilapidated old box that was built like 50 years ago, and the electronics just wonky in it, and just they should be replaced, or even if you replace it, it will be somewhat better, but you really need to optimize them, optimize the crossover to work in your room. If we don't do that, a mediocre loudspeaker from our age will give you a better audiophile experience than they can do, and you will not hear what those drivers are capable of. So without further ado, let's get back to what do we have here. If we have a DECware Zen that has 2 watts per channel output, so this means that it can give us 103 dB peak with a 100 dB efficient loudspeaker. That's pretty damn good. And if we go back to our requirement that we are listening to, let's say, a violin or sitar music, then then for headroom transients at 90 dB level, you need 0.1 watt of output power. So it means that even the headroom is not going anywhere close to the output power of the amp. So basically, if you want to see like how much headroom do you have from the loud parts of the sitar music, you have what is this, 33 dB headroom. So that's a lot. It's not going to clip your sitar and will let you enjoy a sitar concert at its full glory. The loud part itself will demand 1 milliwatt, 1,000th of a watt from your amp. It's just barely on, and the quiet passage is 10 nanowatts. It means a nanowatt means a billionth, not a million times less, a billion times less than a watt. So that's how much is needed from the amplifier. And yep, so that's what you need, and that's what you can get. So basically, if let's see, next one. So what happens when you have the same amplifier, the DECware Zen, but you have an average high efficiency loudspeaker at 94 dB per watt meter efficiency? So that's about the range where most efficient speakers are called today. So in this case, the peak output power will give you 97 dBs output level. So that's where that will be your peak. So if you listen to your sitar music at 90 dB, then it will be playing at 400 milliwatt, almost half a watt of power. So now we are getting closer to the 2 watt limit, but we are still not there. If you looked at the 100 dB loudspeaker, we were playing very far from the output limit of the amp. Now we are getting a little bit closer, but there's still comfortable distance from the absolute peak. And the loud parts will be at 4 milliwatts and the quiet ones at 40 nanowatts. And what happens when you have bookshelf speakers which are 84 dB efficient or 84 dB inefficient? Then the 90 dB headroom for transients would be at 4 watts. So you see, we clearly do not have enough headroom now for a normal listening session for a sitar music. It is clipping the transients. So it means that you will be still able to enjoy a normal sitar music, concert in your living room when you do not push it very loud, but it will not give you the feeling of a live sitar. You will not have the transients out of it. It will be dull to a certain degree. If you never heard a sitar or you never heard a system that's capable of reproducing it accurately with enough headroom, then I would say you will not miss anything. You will still have a fantastic experience, but when you get a chance to listen with enough headroom for transients, it's a transformative experience. So for the 70 dB parts, you need 40 milliwatts. So that's nowhere close to the 2 watts. Most of the music that you play with a deck version with an inefficient speaker will be completely undistorted, and you can play at normal levels. But what you will miss with the bookshelf speaker when you couple it with the Zen is that you will miss the transient energy and you will miss the ability to go 11. So you cannot play it. So actually you can play them peaking at 87 dB volume, which is still pretty loud, but there's no headroom for transients. So if you have bookshelf speakers and you are thinking about the deck version, just think about what is it that you want to use it for. Because if you want to use it for listening quietly, then it will be working fine for you, and you will be doing great. So for example, if you listen to guitar, or even if you listen to classical music, but you don't have the urge or the unbearable desire to listen to it at ear-splitting volumes, and it's fine for you to listen to Bach at a quiet volume, then it will give you a perfect experience. Now, let's go back here. So what is that level when you have a bookshelf speaker, that with each of them, where are they comfortable playing at? And what is the maximum SPL of high-end experience that they can provide? Of course, you can push them higher, but then you lose the transient headroom, and it's not, I would say, not a peak experience. It is, they are becoming more like a commercial or a lower grade amplifier at that high volume. But if you stick to these volumes, then these amplifiers will play with maximum satisfaction and maximum refinement. So the deck version with an inefficient bookshelf will play to the max at 67 dB maximum volume, which is a quiet medium level listening, and then you will still have headroom for transients. An auto would play at medium levels, about 74 dB. Lance Cochrane and the stereo 35 about 76 dB. It's still like a medium level, and the Quicksilver will play up to 80 dB, which is like a medium loud level. If you have efficient speakers, then it all gets bumped up by 10 dB. So the Quicksilver integrated will play at 90 dB at a pretty loud level. So if you want to go to 11, you can go to 11, and then you can add 20 more dB for headroom. So the peak will be, of course, at 110, but like I'm talking about sustained 90 dB. And they will go down with the deckware finishing at 77 dB. So thank you for tuning in. I don't know why it always goes an extra slide. Very eager to get to the next episode. So thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Bye bye.